What is cracking, Hope Nation? It's your friendly neighborhood Kevin Hines. Welcome to the HINESIGHTS Podcast, where we dive deep into stories of resilience, transformation, and the people behind powerful movements. Today, I am beyond excited to introduce you to someone who is redefining what it means to lead with heart and vision, Eli Embleton. Eli is the dream manager at Zachary Corporation, where he coaches employees one-on-one to explore and achieve their personal and professional dreams. His innovative approach has not only transformed lives, but has also caught the attention of the Wall Street Journal and Time magazine. But Eli's impact doesn't stop there. He's the mind behind Functional Spanish, a unique curriculum designed to bridge communication gaps and foster deeper connections. With a master's in business administration and a passion for emotional intelligence, it combines personal development, language mastery, and leadership training to empower people of all walks of life to reach their highest potential. He's fluent in Spanish and speaks 5 other languages, proving that his work truly transcends boundaries across the globe. In this episode, we'll uncover the framework Eli uses every day to help people manage emotions, build resilience, and navigate high-stakes situations. We'll talk about his journey, the creation of Functional Spanish, and his vision for a more connected and emotionally intelligent world. Get ready to be inspired by Eli Embleton's story of empathy, empowerment, and transformational leadership. Eli, welcome to the HINESIGHTS Podcast. How are you today?
Well, Kevin, I'm so good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've had your voice. Your voice has been in my head all week. I've been listening to your book, so I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I hope you like the book.
Absolutely.
Eli, first question is not one of the ones I sent you pre-recording. First question I ask every podcast guest is, how, Eli, is your mental health today?
Today I'm in a good place, but it's something that I work at, so I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
I love that. 10 out of 10. Not an 11 or a 12. You're right there. It's
Manage
perfect.
expectations.
Manage. I love that. Eli, you're known as the dream manager. What inspired you to dedicate your career to helping others uncover and achieve their dreams?
The short version of this is that at one point I was living my dreams and things were going really well for me. And then everything changed in a moment. A man came to my house and my wife was outside, and for reasons unknown, he attacked my wife in broad daylight. I heard my wife scream from the attack, and so I ran after him. And I remember being calm, knowing that this wasn't a good situation, but understandably, I was really angry. When I caught up to this man, he turned and faced me. He had a knife. I was unarmed, and I knew that, this wasn't going to turn out well. I was probably going to be injured, but I just ran straight at him, and I was able to subdue him. And it left me with a really tough decision, which was, do I let this guy live? Or now that he's subdued, is it okay to just let the police take over? I struggled with that question for what seemed like forever, but I think I made the right choice, and I let him live. But when I say that my life changed instantly, my entire family at that moment now knew that the world wasn't safe. My wife was hurt physically, but as you can imagine, trauma kicks in really hard. It wasn't more than like 2 months later that we were in trial, and we had evidence was there, but the district attorney just, I don't think, did a really good job. And they let this guy go on an ankle monitor to await trial for a year. And so instantly I stopped working, and my family we isolated ourselves because going outside was unsafe, because this person lived in our subdivision. So we just couldn't really escape this situation. I spiraled pretty quickly, just not being able to think about the future because we're just so stuck in survival mode. My wife was pregnant at the time with our 4th child, and I just watched my dreams fall away. And to make a long story short, after my son was born, this gentleman did go to jail, but life just wasn't good. I sort of lost my wife to depression, and she just disassociated, and it was really hard to keep the family together and alive. Thankfully, the story does have a happy ending, but it took a long time to recover from this. But I think what's important to you and to people that listen is that there became a spot in time that was really challenging for me. And I could talk about it forever, but just really briefly, during COVID, the legal system dropped the ball. And they moved this gentleman from prison to a halfway house. And then in a matter of 2 years, he was back out. And I felt like I had lost all control. And no matter what decisions I made, like life was just going to be there. And there's this shadow hanging over us. And so
Mm.
I had made a decision. I'm going to do the one thing that I know how to do, is I was going to remove this person from the situation, and that would be it. But the continuation was I was such a burden on my family, and this situation just wasn't good. So I was going to kill him, and then I was going to take my own life.
Wow.
And the only thing that kept me going was after I'd made that decision, I had a plan, and I woke up 3 a.m. and a thought popped into my head. And it was, who could you be if you forgave him? And it instantly brought me back to myself. I wasn't feeling human. I felt like sort of like an animal, like just angry all the time. But the question saved me. And I realized if I could forgive him, I could forgive anybody. And ultimately, I could forgive myself for losing who I was.
Mm.
Not long after that, this gentleman did. He died by suicide. And I think the greatest blessing from that was weird because I felt relief because he wasn't here anymore and that danger was gone, but also just immense sadness for his family. And I know that if he had done that before I forgave him, I wouldn't understand forgiveness like I do now.
Mm.
All that to say that I sort of shifted my life, and at work they gave me this really cool job title, which is the dream manager, because I'd been stuck. I've been stuck in survival mode. I just couldn't think beyond tomorrow, and now I had freedom. I could think beyond tomorrow, and I could start to dream again and think about things that were amazing. And they said, hey, we want you to do this for our employees. And so I dove right in, and we have 2,500 employees. I met with a lot of them one-on-one and just asking about their dreams and what we can do to make those come true.
Wow. That's phenomenal, Zach. With the Zachary Corporation, Eli, you coach employees one-on-one at the Zachary Corporation. What is the most surprising thing you've learned about people's aspirations? You said you talked to quite a few of the 2,500 employees. What are some that stand out to you?
Yeah. I think what's funny is that everybody has like these initial five. They're like the New Year's resolutions. Everybody wants to save money and lose weight and learn a foreign language and get promoted and go on vacation. But it's almost like clockwork. If I sit long enough and just listen, then you can see that they feel safe. And then all of a sudden, like what they really want comes to the surface. And so for frontline employees, it's everything from like, I just want to go back to school and prove to my kids that I can graduate. A lot of our employees didn't graduate high school or have come from a different country and just didn't get the chance. But even up to our C-suite employees, a lot of them, you sort of think they have everything, but then they'll say, you know what, I would like to feel peace.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's a fun place to be in because I get to see this whole range of people and what they really want.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's interesting to see that the C-suite folks are thinking along the lines of just peace and calm in such a hectic world in which they live, which is really, it's very telling about the rest of society, isn't it? Yeah. Uh, Eli, you've created a unique approach with functional Spanish, which we want to talk about. What was the moment that sparked this idea, and how has it impacted cross-cultural communication?
So there was a story that came across where we're from. So I'm in San Antonio, Texas, but down in Corpus Christi there was a job site where an English-speaking foreman pointed at his employee and pointed to a hole in the ground. And the employee understood, I'm supposed to go in this hole. The problem was that in that hole, the oxygen saturation wasn't at the right level. So it's known as immediately dangerous to life and health. So the employee did what he thought he was supposed to do, and he climbed in the hole while the foreman was turning around to get like the air breathing apparatus he needed.
Oh,
By the time he turned around, the employee was in the hole and he died. And all it would have taken was like un momento, like just two simple words in Spanish that would have saved somebody's life. And I speak Spanish, so I just immediately went to work going, what could we do to solve this problem? The majority of our employees speak Spanish, so let's come up with something that actually works. And that's kind of what started it.
incredible. You're very clear about how managing emotions in these high stakes situations is a key theme in your work. I mean, you said in the beginning of the podcast when you heard your wife scream, you were calm. That stayed with you in your situations you experienced. What's one practical strategy people can use right now to stay centered and calm under potentially immense pressure.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, especially about construction, if you mention anything about mindfulness or meditation, people look at you sideways and they think, that'd be nice if I had a retreat to go to or something, and it's just puts away. But I mean, for you and for me, like this stuff is vital. It's something that I do every day. Most people are just, they're controlled by their emotions. When they're angry, they explode. When they're fearful, they run away. When they've got doubts, they lose their nerve. And so one easy thing, and I know you talk about this, I'm excited to read your wellness book, but just finding a way to take some slow, calm breaths. And the easiest one I do is just 3 deep breaths. And every time I take a breath, I find some part of my body that feels maybe tight, and then I release that on the exhale.
Mm.
It's super simple, but if you're going to do one thing, just learn that your breath controls this physical body and can calm you down.
Let's pause right there for a moment, Eli, and reiterate that on my end. People listening, watching, viewing, subscribing to the Hindsights podcast, did you hear what Eli just said? Your breath controls the physical body. It controls things like fear, panic, distress, anxiety, aggression, violence, anger. If you can breathe and take the moment in and exhale the bad, you can take the next step into moving forward, potentially without that deep struggle. Eli, you've been featured in the Wall Street Journal and Time Magazine, to name a few, for your unique approach to employee engagement. What do you think makes your method so effective?
I think that as a company, we believe that we're a company of builders and dreamers. And that's a core fundamental belief. So that's helpful to start with. We've got this expectation that that's welcome. But what I think is important is that when people are engaged in their own lives, then they're more engaged at work. So the method of listening to people and what they really want, and then saying, hey, there's a way that you can go after this. And I'm here as a resource, and we have other resources available to help you do that. They get engaged in doing something on their own, and all of a sudden, like the rest of their life, they start to wake up. And there's all these possibilities. And so I think that's what's most effective, is just listening long enough to get to what people really want.
In your work, how would you say you balance teaching emotional intelligence with leadership and communication frameworks?
This is probably my favorite question, because over my career, I've just watched highly skilled leaders lose their cool. And it causes irreparable damage to the company they're in and their careers. I've also seen highly capable people freeze up in crucial moments. And so it led me to the conclusion that like all leadership and communication training in the world is wonderful, but it won't serve you if you don't have access to those skills in the critical. So emotional intelligence is just increasingly becoming the most important leadership skill. And as we move into the age of artificial intelligence, we're seeing a lack of connection, which is devastating to communication. So if we don't figure this emotional intelligence out, we're not headed in the right place.
I couldn't agree more. You've studied and worked with institutions like Oxford, Harvard, and MIT Dialogue Project. What's one lesson from those experiences that has profoundly shaped your leadership philosophy?
This is where I think I have a lot of fun. Storytelling is king. Storytelling is the fundamental unit of thought. So it helps us make sense of the world. And your book is a prime example. Like I just read the power of storytelling. When you learn from stories, you get someone else's point of view. So you take someone's perspective. It teaches you to learn empathy. So all the facts and tips and statistics in the world, they pale in comparison to story. So my favorite part was I got to work with a gentleman out of London. His name is Richard Olivier. He was the director of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London. But by sheer dumb luck, I don't know how this happened, I got to do a 2-man play with Richard. And we did it for executives. And we brought these high-powered people into a story and then watched them start to change and transform. And I was hooked immediately. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, is I'm going to work with story to help people learn and grow, as opposed to just, here's some fun facts. Here's some tips to be better.
You know, it's great that you said it, because stories are 22 times more memorable than statistics or facts. So you're spot on there with the science and the neuroplasticity of storytelling, which is incredible. Your work, Eli, often bridges personal and professional development. How do you help people align with their personal dreams? How do you help people align their personal dreams with their career goals?
Yeah. Once people start to dream again, it wakes them up to all sorts of possibilities. So I'm fortunate in that sometimes people's dreams take them away from the company, and our company is fine with that. So if you want to pursue school, that's a wonderful thing. It happens more often than not. Than people, they will find what they love in the work, but you just have to connect to that dream first.
You speak multiple languages. How many languages do you speak, and what languages are they?
So I learned Spanish in South America, and while I was down there, I ended up learning Quechua. And then when I came home, I went to school and I got a degree in Greek and Latin and Middle English. Yeah,
Man,
uh,
Middle English.
yes, the middle.
Is that like medieval English?
Yeah, it sounds just like English, but it's a little bit off.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, I wanted to read the Canterbury Tales, so I'm revealing how big of a nerd I am. But that's where I was
That's
at.
incredible. I love that. And so you speak all these languages, and you have this international experience. How has this multicultural perspective really influenced your coaching leadership styles?
So I'm going to steal this insight from a guy named Richard Moon, who's an Aikido master. He calls it the art of extraordinary listening.
Mm.
And too often when we're listening to something, we're listening for something, like a chance to respond or the advice we're about to give. But being around so many different cultures, it allows me to lean into listening. Mostly because when you're learning a new language, you can't speak. So I got to shut up and listen. But it's fascinating when you can see how language and culture mix. So your perspective changes. Just because you speak a different language, or the culture you grew up in reflects in your perspective. So I try to just listen as much as I can, not just for the words people say, but where they're coming from. And that affects everything I do with leadership. It's just everything's based on listening.
Listening to understand, not to respond.
Exactly.
Perfect. If you could distill your approach into one core belief or mantra that drives everything you do, what would it be?
So this one boils down to that question that just woke me up at 3 a.m. Just who could I be if? And anytime I meet somebody in a dream manager situation or anything at work, I always ask them, like, if this wasn't a problem, like, who could you be if you weren't affected by this petty problem over here or the ideas that are keeping you down? And it's funny that if you can just think beyond it for a second, your world opens up. So that's how I look at everything now.
Mm. What are your hopes for the impact of functional Spanish on the future of global business and interpersonal connections?
Yeah. I'm totally convinced that language is a social function. So there's so many cool apps and learning things out there right now, but anytime I ask somebody who's got like a degree in Spanish, I just say, "Hey, can you go order a taco?" And they instantly freeze because they're afraid of looking embarrassed or looking stupid in front of other people. So functional Spanish does something amazing, I think, which is I bring people in to an immersive experience where they learn language and culture. And we do things like we go order food, we check into a hotel, we learn folklorico dancing and listen to mariachi music. And when you do these things, it's what we call type 2 fun. It's the type of fun that you don't like doing it in the moment, but when you're done, you're like, that was worth it. And so what I see happening is leaders coming in, learning the language and mostly empathy for other people trying to, and they take it back to where they're from, and you start seeing connections. So one of the fascinating things I see is a leader will stand up and try to say something in broken Spanish, and it gives all the Spanish speakers permission to try. So this is where I see this going, is a sort of an empathy and connection shift.
That's beautiful. And lastly, my friend Eli, what's the one dream of your own that you're currently working toward, and how can our listeners be inspired to do the very same?
Man, so I know what it's like to be stuck in survival mode and not able to dream. So my dream right now is, it's so clear. I want to help the Death Bridge documentary get out into the world. I want people who have no hope to see what's possible, to be inspired by like those men and women in the movie, like what was done at the Golden Gate Bridge. Like if it can be done there, it can be done anywhere. Like removing access to lethal means, I have this vision in my head of the people that it will serve and just wake them up to this. Like I'm going to move mountains for this, because in the midst of immeasurable pain, you can still have hope. We're never meant to walk this path of pain alone. I got so tired of being alone and feeling like I was a burden. I didn't want to share my story with anybody because I didn't want to put it on them. But the more I share, I see people waking up that, I'm in this situation too. We can do this together.
We can do this together. We are doing this together. Eli, thank you for mentioning the Bridge film. for those of you who don't know, is a documentary we are making on the power of reducing access to lethal means in tall buildings, structures, railways, and bridges all over the world, specifically the Golden Gate Bridge and the effort to end death at the Golden Gate Bridge that's gone on for over 90 years. We are in a place where the nets are up at the Golden Gate Bridge, and in 1 year, suicides have reduced by 73% at the Golden Gate Bridge because those nets are up. We fought for 20 years to make this happen, and now we are making the definitive film on this crucial, imperative, and so important story to save lives all around the world. Eli, you've been incredible on the podcast. And my friends, that is a wrap on today's episode with the incredible Eli Embleton. You've heard how Eli's approach as the dream manager has transformed lives by helping people not only dream big, but take real steps to achieve those dreams. His insights on managing emotions, building resilience, and bridging cultural divides through functional Spanish remind us all that leadership isn't just about strategy, it's about heart, humor, connection, and courage. Whether you're navigating a tough situation, looking for clarity in your path, or simply seeking to make a difference in your world, remember Eli's core message. It starts with mastering yourself, and it's amplified when you empower others. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this podcast with someone who might need a spark of inspiration. And as always, subscribe to the HINESIGHTS Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts or view them, and leave us a review. They matter. They help us. Your support helps us keep bringing powerful stories like Eli's to listeners all around the globe, and we are in over 70 countries. Until next time, keep reaching out for your dreams, stay connected to each other, and remember, you are never alone in this journey. I'm Kevin Hines, and this has been an episode of the HINESIGHTS Podcast. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you for having me.